I think that movies depend so much on rhythm. They are so close to music, a movie is. Closer to music than a drama of the theater. That if the sound and the rhythm of the sound, above all the rhythm, is wrong, no image can save it. It's not only what you say, but the rhythm and speed of all the voices in a scene. So I often, when I direct, turn my back on the scene.
Hello everyone and welcome to Tales of Cinema, the podcast episode 4.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! Oh, in the name of God! Now I know what it feels like to be God!
So today we're going to talk about two films by Ringo Lam, the Hong Kong director Ringo Lam. We're going to talk a little bit about Wild City and mostly about Sky on Fire. They are his last two films.
你俾我最好嘅，唔可以攞走。
A little bit about Ringo Lam himself first. He was born in 1955 in British Hong Kong. He sadly passed away in 2018. As far as I'm aware, we still don't know why. In Hong Kong, he attended the actors training program where he met Chow Yun-fat, who will become a recurring actor in his filmography. Then he went to Canada to study film, and he came back to Hong Kong in 1981, just at the beginning of what we will call later the Hong Kong New Wave. A new wave of filmmakers in the 1980s who were boosting a bit the local production. Hong Kong already had a prolific production in the 60s, 70s, thanks to the Shaw Brothers and their studio. They're responsible for many classics and successes in Hong Kong. But by the end of the 70s, it was running out of steam, basically. And you have younger filmmakers, most of them who benefited from the unique status of Hong Kong to study abroad and to bring back this body of knowledge to Hong Kong, which was a bit different from the techniques developed by the Shaw Brothers. And those young filmmakers had a tendency to mix the traditional Shaw Brother techniques, traditional Hong Kong techniques, with techniques that they learned while they were studying abroad. Most of the time we put Choi Hock as the leader of that new wave because he created his own film production company called Film Workshop and produced a lot of young filmmakers like John Woo, people like Eric Tsang, and a lot of other directors like Johnny To, Ringo Lam himself, and so on and so on. So you have that wave of young filmmakers who wanted to do something different, something never seen before in Hong Kong cinema, and it will turn out that it will be something never seen before in any other cinema. So Ringo Lam is part of that new wave, of that Hong Kong New Wave. He started with a couple of romantic comedies, then directed Aces Go Places 4. I would actually recommend the whole series, or at least the first 4 films. They're hilarious, very well made, excellent stunts. The first 2 are directed by Eric Tsang. The third one, which is the craziest of them all, is directed by Choi Hock. And this fourth one by Ringo Lam is already an early example of his style. But it's in 1987 that he will become renowned in Hong Kong and a few years afterwards internationally. It's thanks to the 1987 City on Fire starring Chow Yun-fat, a gritty, realistic action thriller that Tarantino will take inspiration from to make Reservoir Dogs. And from then on, his style is established. So he will go on to direct other action thrillers. He will specialize in those. He will do Prison on Fire in 1987, School on Fire in 1988, Wild Search in 89, Undeclared War in 90. He will co-direct Twin Dragons with Choi Hawk, a film starring Jackie Chan. My personal favorite, which is Full Contact, in 1992 with Chow Yun-fat once again. And in the 90s, he's one of 3 Hong Kong filmmakers to be brought to Hollywood by Jean-Claude Van Damme. The first one being John Woo, then Choi Hawk, and then Ringo Lam. He will direct 3 films with Jean-Claude Van Damme. The first one being Maximum Risk, then Replicant, and finally In Hell, clearly the best of them all. And from then on, his career will go down a little bit. After In Hell in 2003, he will do the collaborative film Triangle in 2007. Very interesting concept, co-directed by Ringo Lam, Choi Hawk, and Johnny To. But after that, he will take a very long, a 7-year break from the filmmaking world, being tired of the whole system, really. But eventually will come back in 2015 with Wild City. So I'm not going to talk too much about Wild City. I'm including it in this episode because it has themes in common with Sky on Fire. But I have to admit, if I have to be honest with you, it's not a very good film. I mean, it's not a bad film. It's just very boring. There's not much happening, and the film takes forever to start, and it seems like it never starts. So I can't really recommend it because you're just gonna be bored. There are a couple of action scenes when we find back a little bit Ringo Lam, notably a car chase at the beginning of the film, where the editing is quite well done, quite precise, but nowhere near what Ringo Lam has done in the past. I'm including Wild City in this episode because, like I said, it has themes in common with Sky on Fire. Wild City was released in 2015 and Sky on Fire 2016. It's interesting to talk about those 2 films together because they are the last bit of legacy that Ringo Lam will leave us before his death. And because of that and the similar themes, there's something quite interesting in there. So the main themes of those 2 films are very obviously money is evil. You can tell that the aging Ringo Lam is tired and angry at a society that basically runs by money, for money, and that's it. Money will make us all slaves. Money will make us all unhappy. Money is a devil. Money is a demon. Modern society makes us all slaves. There is also this idea that youth can't find happiness, and that life without love isn't worth living. And one way or another, the main characters of both films will face those themes, will face those problems. And the goal of those 2 films will be to us, the audience, to witness their transformation, their evolution or not, while being opposed or confronted to these themes. And that's really interesting to see. That's the conclusion of Ringo Lam's life, basically. Now, Sky on Fire. I watched it about a year or two ago, and I had really good memories of it. I had memories of a lot of action and very precise editing and strong themes and an old school feeling. And recently I rewatched it, and yeah, this old school feeling is there straight away from the start, from the opening title. The way the opening title is written on the screen is a completely old school Hong Kong action style. So from the start, Ringo Lam is saying to us, you stepping into an old school made Hong Kong film, which is very interesting because it has sci-fi themes the first time in Ringo Lam's career, and it has a use of CGI, of digital effects in the film that Ringo Lam never used before as well. So Sky on Fire is that very weird mix between Ringo Lam's experience in action thrillers in Hong Kong, his desire to do something more old school with loads of action after I suppose after the hit that was Wild City, but realizing that maybe there's something into those themes, but at the same time I really want to do something more actiony and more of the style I used to develop in the 80s, 90s. I guess, I suppose that's what motivated him to do Sky on Fire, and at the same time having those new things that are, those new elements that are digital effects and sci-fi themes into it. That's very, very surprising. Like I said, there's a lot of action, and it starts straight away. The first action scene, there's a car crash that I'm not going to say too much about it, but the realism of that car crash is very rarely seen on the screen, and it keeps going like this over and over and over in the film. One thing about Sky on Fire is that it reminds us of Lam being one of the best, if not the best, at editing car chases, car crashes, and action scenes like this, gritty, realistic action scenes. He's probably one of the very, very best. And we forgot a little bit about that with Wild City, but Sky on Fire comes back, and from the start up to the end, delivers. So there's also many more characters than in Wild City, and they are all intricately linked to the main themes of the film, intricately linked to the developments of the story. So I'm not going to spoil too much about it, but there are a lot of characters, and they all, some way or another, kind of motivated by money or blocked by money. Money is here as a huge problem. It's almost a state of God, really, and a very bad God. But within all this, there is love, and all the characters are fighting one way or another for love, or for a love that they lost, and the only characters to survive this whole story will be the ones that will understand the meaning of that love, and who will fight for that love. In both films, I found a little bit of a Tony Scott influence. Here and there are little moments, very Tony Scott-like moments, where you have desaturated colors, a lot of oranges and yellow, and the pictures are edited very elusively, with pictures blurring into each other, and a bit of shaky cam, and I'm sure you see what I mean by that. Tony Scott has such a unique style, it's easily recognizable. So I mentioned the sci-fi elements before. It's basically the plot contains the current issue of the stem cells, and Ringo Lam gives us his opinion, which I agree with, but I am not going to say more in here. So this is the main sci-fi element in the film. It's the use of stem cells, and now in 2020, it's not so much sci-fi anymore. It's a plot device. But Ringo Lam takes the occasion to tell us what he thinks about the whole world, about the pharmaceutical world, about the whole society we live in. The other element that I mentioned that is the first time Ringo Lam is working with are the CGI, the digital effects. I have to admit they are a little bit dated in their use. You can see them, but they are not too intrusive. You can see them, but he's using them just to enhance the scenes that he has. Unfortunately, they don't look that good, so they tend to sting the eye a little bit. If he can do the stunts live, he does them. He just uses the digital effects as a way to enhance, correct a few things within the frame. He knows the limitations of his effects at that time in 2016 in Hong Kong. There are a few scenes where he's using it because he can't afford it, like the one of the opening scene, the fire scene. You will see what I mean. Obviously, he probably couldn't have the budget to explode an entire building and put an entire building on fire. Every now and then it shows it sting the eye, but there's still an interesting use of the CGI, especially when you think it's Ringo Lam, this kind of specialized into live action stunts and realistic action scenes. That's an element to keep an eye on, I would say. The end of the film, that is just for the end, that's a film you have to watch. Ringo Lam, last film. 2 years later, he will sadly pass away, and he ends the last film of his career. As a conclusion of his career, of his filmography, it's incredible. It's an incredible act of anarchism. It's an incredible punk, and I wasn't expecting this, and I wasn't prepared for this, and I have to admit, especially coming from an older guy like Ringo Lam, a bit tired. We could see him. I think Wild City is just him being a bit rusty, but he basically took the same themes and reinvented them into something half old school and half looking in the future. And for a last film, the last bit of legacy that he leaves on this earth, this end is just unbelievable, completely crazy. And to my knowledge, I haven't seen all of Ringo Lam's films, but from the ones I've seen, I don't think there's been an open end like this in his films. Basically, there's an open end for one of the characters where you can interpret it in two different ways. It's very subtle. It's just a little shot and that's it. Basically, Ringo Lam asks you to interpret it, to make your own conclusion on this. And for a last film, again, it's quite surprising. I didn't expect this of Ringo Lam. Really incredible, subversive, anarchist, punk end. Crazy. So as a conclusion on this podcast about the last two films by Ringo Lam, I would say if you're a Ringo Lam fan, if you've seen a few films of him before, watch Wild City. It's interesting to see his development as a man, as an artist. For the rest, it's going to be a bit boring, I'm afraid. However, Sky on Fire, whether you're Ringo Lam fan or not, watch it because it's a mix between all the experience that Ringo Lam has in filmmaking, particularly action scenes, car chases. There's incredible car chases in the film, incredibly edited. So it's a mix between like I said, this old school Hong Kong style that Ringo Lam helped develop, and an eye more towards the future with sci-fi elements, with a bit of CGI, not always well done, not always well balanced, but at least it's an old guy who's looking into the best of both worlds, and that's interesting. As a last bit of legacy left on this earth, it's very interesting to put it back into this context. The message that he wants to leave on this earth, his conclusion on life and on modern life, all that ending with an incredible act of rebellion, an incredible act of anarchism, a punk act. Wild City is available on Blu-ray, edited by Wellgo USA. It's a pretty good Blu-ray. It's a little bit expensive, and it's a region 1. So you'll have to have a region 3 Blu-ray player for this. It's the same. It's even more difficult to find Sky on Fire. There is a Blu-ray, but it's a Chinese Blu-ray. You have to import it for quite a bit of money. I would like to see that film edited a bit more in the Western countries, because it's really worth it. If there's any Blu-ray editor, any distributor listening to me, please pick up Sky on Fire and release it in a decent edition, because it's really worth it. And I'm sure it's a film that could be popular amongst a Western audience. So you'll have a bit of difficulties to find Sky on Fire for now, but trust me, it's worth the effort. Here we are once again. I hope you enjoyed this episode about the last two films by Ringo Lam, Wild City and Sky on Fire. That's me done for today, but I will be back very soon. But for now, goodbye.
Fight on.